everyone, welcome back. So this is actually the first video that was requested by one of my subscribers, so shout out to Harris for asking me to talk about this. His question was, how, if at all, can LGBT stances on sexuality and gender coexist with Christianity? Great question. Now before I begin, 3 quick disclaimers. First, just like in my What It Means to Be Trans video, I'm limiting myself to 5 minutes. I really want it to be short and simple, something that people can share with others who might be confused or struggling. Second, I'm only going to focus on sexuality in this video as opposed to gender. I feel like trying to cover both in one video would be a bit complicated and I would definitely run out of time. Third, while this is an informed perspective, it is an outsider perspective. So after you're done watching this video, I definitely encourage you to seek out the perspectives of LGBT Christians as well. Anyway, enough introduction, let's get this timer started. So I want to start this with a simple fact that some of y'all might not know. Jesus never said anything about homosexuality, and some people try to circumnavigate this fact by citing Matthew 19:6, where Jesus says, "Therefore what God has joined together, let no one separate," in reference to heterosexual unions. And he is talking about straight couples here, but he's talking about divorce. You can't take a verse that's about divorce and pretend like it's about being gay. So, for those Christians who say, I just follow the teachings of Jesus, I don't really worry about the other stuff, then congratulations, you're good to go. But if you're worried about the other parts, then keep watching. When talking about this issue, a lot of people love to reference Genesis 19, where these 2 angels, who were men, came to visit a man named Lot. And while they were visiting, according to verse 4, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people down to the last man, surrounded the house and basically said, hey, we want to have sex with those dudes. Fast forward a few hours, the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah go up in flames because God is displeased with them. Seems like an open and shut case, right? Well, not exactly. Remember, this wasn't just a couple of men who thought that the angels were attractive and wanted to take them out on a date. This was the whole city that surrounded the house, likely with the worst of intentions. Some scholars have suggested that rape was a tactic that was used at this time in this place to intimidate and dehumanize foreigners, something that all of us should recognize as being completely horrific. Furthermore, later on in the Bible, in Ezekiel 16:49, God says exactly what it was that set him off about Sodom and Gomorrah. Behold, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess of food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy. That's the reason they went up in flames. So while I don't disagree with the protesters who say that America and other first world countries are like Sodom and Gomorrah, it has less to do with the gays and more to do with unequal distribution of wealth. And honestly, I applaud any pastor who has the courage to deliver that sermon. So next we come to the 2 most commonly cited verses when people talk about LGBT stuff. Leviticus 18:22 and Leviticus 20:13. And I want to focus on the second verse where it calls for gay people to be put to death. Because I think it's safe to say that, at least in America where I live, most homophobic people don't want LGBT folks to die. And that might seem like an obvious statement, but think about it. If LGBT people are breaking God's law by being themselves, aren't they breaking God's law by not following through? The answer is yes, in the same way that it's also a violation of God's law to eat shrimp or wear polyester. Leviticus was never intended to be a global rule book. It was for the ancient Israelite and many Jewish people today to distinguish themselves from the surrounding people. Also, the evidence seems to suggest that these surrounding people would have same-sex encounters that would either be non-consensual or they were used as a part of pagan ritual, which obviously is an issue for a deity who wants to be the sole object of his people's worship and who has very particular ways about how he wants to be worshipped. But men who simply love other men, there isn't a lot of evidence there to suggest that this was a conflict at that time. Also, fun fact for all of my fellow lesbians, the book of Leviticus says absolutely nothing about us, so if anyone tries to tell you that you can't be gay because Leviticus, you are legally obligated to be even gayer as an act of defiance. The last verse that I want to focus on comes from the book of Romans, where Paul says, "Women exchange natural intercourse for unnatural, and in the same way also the men, giving up natural intercourse with women, were consumed with passion for one another." It's probably the argument I hear the most often when it comes to the LGBT community, that we're unnatural, and it's so harmful and damaging because it's just not true. We're learning that LGBT identities have their roots in genetic and neurological variants. We know for a fact that homosexuality is found in over 1,500 different species, including lions, penguins, dolphins, lizards, and yes, humans. And on top of that, we see how gay animals actually play important roles in the survival of their species, such as gay penguins taking care of the eggs that get abandoned. You know, kind of like how we have hundreds of thousands of kids in foster care here in America who are just waiting to be adopted by loving gay couples. If you believe in a God who formed our inward parts, who knit us together in our mother's womb, then who are we to deny the reality that some of us are born gay, or bi, or asexual? Who are we to look at the way God knit some people together and say, I don't like your stitching? If you or someone you love is a part of the LGBT community, it isn't a matter of choice, but a matter of our innate nature. It is a blessing to be part of a community that's based on love. And if you're an LGBT Christian, you get to say that you're a part of two communities that are based on love. How awesome is that? And that's time. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for the next video, please let me know down in the comments below. Like I said, this was just a brief summary of all of the research that's been done, so I'm really hoping in future videos to elaborate, answer questions, all that good stuff. And above all else, I hope that someone finds this helpful. I know that when I first started to come to terms with my identity, it felt like there was a lot of spiritual pressure on me to be someone who I wasn't. So please, please, please share this with anyone who might be struggling with their identity because of religious reasons. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!